Revolutionary greetings, comrades. It's a Blue Monday. I don't know what it means, Blue Monday. But on our Red Sunday, we had asked you to post the questions. So we didn't have a chance to go through the questions. So we thought it's necessary that we respond to the questions this morning so that we will continue to engage. Next week, you will also send other questions. Like we said, that we do not have answers to all political and economic questions. We learn from each other. So it's a discussion that we are having. So it cannot be that we will have answers to all the questions. That's not correct. What is correct is that we learn from each other. And it is important that we continue to educate one another on various political and economic issues. Let's get to the questions that were posted. I noticed that some comrades were then posting football questions. This platform, we're not discussing football. We will create a platform for football, but we are dealing with the political questions. Comrade Nicholas Murazwi writes, after yet another disputed ZANU-PF victory next year, what is the way forward for poor Zimbabweans? Well, what we should all of us do is to ensure that the elections are held in a free and a fair environment, and that the outcome is not going to be disputed. This is why it is important that we should have a national dialogue before an election takes place, because under the current conditions, the outcome is going to be contested, and we know what it means to have an election outcome that is contested. So our society will continue to be polarized. So it is important that there is a national dialogue. Of course, we as communists have said we need a national economic dialogue, but it doesn't appear that parties represented in parliament have an interest in the national economic dialogue, but parties in the National Assembly or represented in the National Assembly and other parties outside, they seem to focus on fielding candidates in the 2023 elections, even though the conditions will not allow a free and a fair election. So once you have once you have a disputed election outcome in 2023, we're not going to grow our economy, and we are going through an economic crisis. Our inflation is higher. I was reading a comment by one economist saying our situation now is worse than what it was in 2008. So the only way to begin to build our economy is to ensure that we have a stable political environment, so that we build the national democratic economy. That's what I will say, Comrade Nicholas. Then Comrade Gary Twala Jackson says it posted a question on Friday, and I did not answer that question. He had written his question in this manner. It said, Comrade Ngabuto Nicholas Mapena, I have a question for your Friday question, saying, Kanti lapana induna kayila bantu noma abantu yimbo abangela nduna. Please help us before 28. To us, 28 is a special number. Ngili 28 Ligambiko Masungu. So you will know that in Zimbabwe, your ID number starts with your district number. So Comrade Gary Twala Jackson says he's 28. Mina, I am 19. But his question, I think it's in reference to King Mzilikazi II, who had convened what had termed an Indaba in Berea Park in Johannesburg, where he had said that on the 28th of May was going to travel to Zimbabwe or to Matabeleland with Zimbabweans or the people of Matabeleland that are in South Africa as part of his bid to get to State House in Bulawayo, because he says the State House belongs to the royal family. So it is his to occupy. That what he says. So Comrade Twala had asked this question on Friday, but of course there have been developments. We now know that the trip which was said was going to happen did not happen. I heard on Studio 7 that King Mzilikazi II, that is Stanley Khumalo, though others dispute, that is not a Khumalo, is a Chuma. That's for the Khumalo family to resolve. But the audio that I got from Studio 7 was that he has abandoned, or so far he has suspended his trip to get to State House in Bulawayo, because he says the state has unleashed the security forces in and around Bulawayo to prevent any person who will attempt to have access to the State House in Bulawayo. So, Comrade Gary Twala. But in terms of the supporters, because remember that when photos began to circulate of a supposedly meeting in Berea Park, there were few people that he had attended. You know, when you have a public meeting in Johannesburg at Berea Park in particular, many people attend for different reasons. You have a meeting of one political party, the same people will come, another party or a cultural activity, people will come. In most cases, what draws people to meetings at Berea Park is the music. So if you invite musicians, as people always do, people will come, whether it's a Highlanders, supporters, football club celebrating or selling their regalia, people will come. The same people will come for an MRP, Triple C, whatever, as long as there's music. But on that day, of course, there were few people. Yes, there appears to be confusion, because look, you cannot expect that people, you will come here and they say, I'm now taking you back to Matabeleland or back to Zimbabwe. When you did not even ask the people to come to South Africa. So you can't come to South Africa and say, I'm coming here to take my people back to Zimbabwe or back to Bulawayo. We are going to create our own kingdom. I'm going to take over State House. People want to live in a place where there's economic activity. People want bread and butter issues. People are not interested in listening to comedians. They want bread and butter issues to be dealt with. So even writing, understand, even wrote to President Ramaphosa to that effect, which of course that is dangerous in our view, because you have people that are struggling right now to renew their ZEP. And there are many people that are appealing to the conscience of the South African cabinet. And then you come all the way from Bulawayo and say, no, I'm taking my people back to Bulawayo. That is irresponsible. That's what I will say, Comrade Gerritwara. It is very irresponsible to do such, because people want to address bread and butter issues. And there is no prospect of people getting employment in Bulawayo. So Stanley Khumalo should stop his comic. He should understand that people are under pressure. People have children born in South Africa who are school going, and they do not know what is going to happen in January when they fail to move to other mainstream visas. What will happen to their school going children? And then you come and say, no, I'm actually taking you back. Instead, if Stanley could have written to President Ramaphosa to appeal to his conscience, to say, look, I'm the king of Mtwagazi. I understand that your cabinet took a decision based on the following. But we thought we needed to highlight some of the challenges that my subjects are going through. Is it not proper that you might want to review your decision and grant these people another 3-year grace period so that we try and fix our issues, as opposed to say, no, there will be a great exodus going to State House? That is very nonsensical, and they should not be playing with people's emotions. Okay, let's go to Comrade Mujozi Forbes Mutandiri. I will ignore your first comment. Comrade Jose Mutandiri was saying, your take on the Harare football tournament for peace. And I guess you are talking about Triple C and the ZANU-PF youth that held a soccer tournament in Harare as part of peace building. While it is a good initiative, but we all know that Harare and other urban centers are strongholds of the opposition. You are now basically taking ZANU-PF to your stronghold. This is what the young people of the Triple C did. You are taking young people to your stronghold to open political space for ZANU-PF to campaign through these soccer tournaments. While you are saying you want to build peace, while it is appreciated that there must be peace, but the danger is you are taking ZANU-PF young people to your stronghold. Let me just give an example. You know, in the build-up to the 2013 elections, we went countrywide as part of Joint Monitoring and Implementation Committee. I was deployed in Matabele South, I think, from 2011 to about 2013, beginning of 2014. We were working there as part of peace building. So we're under JOMIC, and they will be going in all communities involved in these peace meetings. The 3 political parties that had signed the global political agreement were part of those, so that officers, and I was one of the officers in Matabele South. So we'll go with the political leaders to these public meetings. And what I discovered, which we discovered very late, is that in 2008, the MDC had won more seats in Matabele South, but in 2013 it lost all the seats. And the reason being that in the name of peace building, we took ZANU-PF leadership, together of course with the MDC leadership, to MDC strongholds. They had meetings because what was in the minds of the people in the MDC strongholds was that ZANU-PF was a monster. So if you then had Andrew Lang, who was chairman of ZANU-PF for Mat South then, would now be speaking to MDC supporters in the name of peace building, people began to have certain perceptions about Andrew Lang and the party that he led. So people started to warm up to ZANU-PF. And what I discovered was that the ZANU-PF leadership were more eloquent in articulating their issues than in the MDC leadership. You will know that ZANU-PF, they go through political education. They will go and train, attend political education in China. Some young people of ZANU-PF are now in Tanzania attending political education. So they were clear in articulating their message during these peace meetings that were held in provinces and rural communities. To an extent that in 2013 they won the elections. So we were naive, because while we were Comrade Mujozi, we were saying it's important that we have an election that was free of political violence, and we had fingered ZANU-PF as the one that was using violence as a political tool. There was no violence in the 2013 elections. ZANU-PF changed the strategy because we took them to the stronghold of the MDC and they won. And the Triple C youth, I think they are repeating the same mistake. I would appreciate if the soccer tournaments are held in rural areas, in ZANU-PF stronghold, in Mashonaland Central, in Mashonaland West, in Mashonaland East, in Maswingo, that will be great, so that the Triple C young people are not seen as people who are calling for sanctions, as people who are not patriotic, so that they begin to have dialogue with the rural communities. But what they've done is to go to their stronghold, which I think is a poor political strategy. Just check what government did, or ZANU-PF did over the weekend in the burial of Chief Mabiwa in Lupane, when Nelson Chamisa was refused to attend the funeral because they thought that he was going to take the limelight from the Vice President, General Chiwenga, who then says, so they would not want what they perceive to be their stronghold to bring in the opposition leadership. But the Triple C young people would then take ZANU-PF to their own strongholds in the name of building peace. But we know that in 2023, Triple C is going to win elections. So I do not think it is a good political strategy for them to take ZANU-PF to their political strongholds. I'm sure I've answered your question, Comrade Mujozi Forbes Mutandiri. Comrade Mlungisi Ndlovu says, is it possible to ask a general question, Jen? If not, what's your take on the arresting of the MRP9? What can the human rights organization do? What can the public do to help? It's not for me to say what the comrades from Twa's Republic Party, it's not for me to say, but we are in solidarity with them. Remember, when they were arrested, we were campaigning for their release. We have now learned that last week, because they've been on bail, remember, they were granted bail, they've been attending trial while on bail, but last week then the magistrate then said is going to keep them in custody in preparation for the delivery of judgment. So they are currently in prison. I do not know when they will appear in court. We are in solidarity with them, and we hope that they are going to be released. And we appeal to everyone, because this is a political trial. Whether you believe in the restoration agenda or not, this is a political trial. And it is important that we give them solidarity, their families. We should give support to their families. Some of these comrades, they are working. Now that they are in prison, they are unable to support their families. So we appeal to comrades to raise resources for their families, so that kids will continue going to school, they will continue to have a normal life while we are dealing with these political matters. Because this court appearance, it's a political case, and we hope that the lawyers will do everything within the legal framework to ensure that they are set free. Comrade Roderick Muzala Dube says, is it fair what ZANU-PF did not allow Comrade Chamisa to attend funeral? Is it part of our African culture? I've already dealt with this question, Comrade Roderick Muzala Dube, other than to say no one gets invited to a funeral. In African culture, no one gets invited to a funeral. A funeral is not a wedding where you write invitation cards and restrict people to say, no, you are invited to my wedding on such a day. A funeral, no one gets invited. In the village where I grew up, and it becomes the duty of everyone to go lapho kulemfa khona. So you don't invite people to a funeral, and you don't stop people from attending a funeral. It is an African, but as I've already said, that it was a political issue, because they thought that Chamisa was going to steal a limelight from Vice President Chiwenga and the other ZANU-PF leaders, because they wanted to control who gets to the funeral, and also control the messaging. I posted in the morning a video by Useni, Reverend Useni Mbulawe, when we were speaking about Kukuraundi. You saw how Obed Mpofu, the Secretary for Administration for ZANU-PF, responded in his view, which of course is nonsensical. He says Kukuraundi was resolved by Nkomo and Mugabe. That guy, we are Skulela and Obed, because Kukuraundi was never resolved. It was never resolved. So there's this tendency by some in the political leadership in Matabeleland to always dismiss Kukuraundi. But of course, Vice President Chiwenga recognized that yes, Kukuraundi must be resolved. This is what Emmerson Mnangagwa, the president, spoke about. You remember the meetings of civil society and the traditional leaders at State House in Bulawayo. We might have a disagreement in the manner in which they want to resolve the question of Kukuraundi, but to outright say that Kukuraundi was resolved, it means that it was wrong for President Emmerson Mnangagwa to even have those meetings at State House, if you follow the argument by Obed Mpofu. The video is posted, it is there. And then the last question, because I said to not deal with football questions, this is not a platform for football questions, but the last question is from Comrade Smile Vigindu Gusebele. He says, what's your take on Chiwenga claiming to be Muzukuru of the Kumaros? Look, on a serious note, people marry across. It's a reality. I have sisters from the Mapena clan that are married, whether to the Zezuru, to the Karanga, to the Maninga, they are there. We have Abazulu of Shona origin. Their fathers are Shona. It's a reality that you cannot run away from. Just as we have our own brothers from the Mapena and the other surnames in Matabeleland who are married to the Shona ladies. It's a natural. It happens. I mean, we have lived together for over 150 years. When King Mziligas arrived in that land, we have been living together. So it's not something that can be a surprise. But I saw some comments on social media that no, Chiwenga is lying. What? If his mother is a Makumalo, there's nothing really special or nothing amiss about that. That's his mother. What then he did, or his role during Kukuraundi is something else. But if his mother is a Kumalo, Umumzukulu Kumalo, that's it. Just as we have developed people that have relatives in Mashonaland, even some have relatives in Malawi, in Zambia. This is why, as the Zimbabwe Communist Party talk of the reunion agenda, that we have relatives across the region. And now we have relatives in Tanzania, in Nigeria, in DR Congo, because our sisters are dating guys from West Africa. And of course, some of us, our brothers, are getting married to ladies across the continent. So we have relatives across the continent. So there's nothing that people should be worried about to say, why would Chiwenga talk now that I mean, it was a funeral burying a chief, and you thought it was appropriate for him to state that, look, I am here as Umzukulu, and there's nothing amiss. We can then talk about his political beliefs. We can then talk about his role in Kukuraundi when the people of Matabeleland or his uncles or Kumalo suffered under Kukuraundi when he was in the military. But we cannot dismiss what he says, that Umzukulu. And some of us, we don't even know Aban Bago Kumalo. Some of us were the very ones who are quick to rush to social media saying, no, Lamanga. But we have not checked with the Kumalo family whether it is true or not. So, yeah. Thanks, comrades. These were the questions that were posted over the weekend. We know that the Department of Home Affairs is amending the Immigration Act. and also the Minister or the Department of Labor and Employment is coming up with a policy on migrant labor, international migration labor policy. I think that's the correct name, if I'm not mistaken. But they are working on that. They said within 3 months they will have done or concluded their work. So we hope that maybe by end of June they might have concluded. I also perused through the drafted documents of the African National Congress. You know, the ANC is going to its policy conference. I hear it is in July. Normally what the African National Congress does is that they hold a policy conference before their national before their national elective conference. The policy conference discusses policies of the ANC. They do not adopt them. They make a recommendation to the national conference to adopt those policies. So I tried. I haven't really read the document that I received, but I just scanned through. While I was scanning through, there's nothing much on the question of migration from the draft policies that I saw. But I just saw a comment that it says the ANC must pay attention to the 2023 elections. And you know, we've always said it is wrong in our view. Just a sec. We've said it is wrong in our view for the ANC to take sides in the Zimbabwean election. If the African National Congress is neutral on the imperialist war in Eastern Europe, says Russia and Ukraine must negotiate to end the conflict. Notwithstanding that we know that Russia is fighting NATO in Ukraine, and Ukraine is used as a as a base for such. But the ANC has taken a position that there must be negotiations. And we expect that the ANC, when it comes to Zimbabwe, it should not do what it did in the previous elections, where it sends its officials to give solidarity to ZANU-PF. It should not do so. So we appeal to the African National Congress to adopt a similar stance, to say elections in Zimbabwe must be held in a free and a fair environment without taking sides. Because taking sides, ordinary people think that, well, the ANC is supporting ZANU-PF, which is failing to rebuild the economy. Because of that, people who cannot find jobs in South Africa, young people, they will simply flock to South Africa. So we need the African National Congress and South Africa to take some kind of neutral position. We know that it's difficult to be neutral, but for the sake of dealing with the question of migration, we need the people of Zimbabwe to decide on who should lead them without anyone making an influence or influencing, and we should not see any foreign power openly supporting one political party over the other. Allow the people of Zimbabwe to have a free and a fair election. Actually, assist the people of Zimbabwe to have a free and fair election, so that once we have political stability, we are able to rebuild our economy. And it is a step in reducing mass migration from Zimbabwe to South Africa. So we will check by end of June if the amendment or in the Immigration Act and the Labour Migration Act will be done, and also take it from there on what it will mean, particularly to those that will not qualify to move to other visas. Otherwise, comrades, have a great week. Goodbye.